I think that becoming an entrepreneur makes you more abundant minded. And I think you'll like this visual, but I think most people look at life like imagine everybody's in a little cafe and they're serving pie, okay? Pie, big round pie.
Right.
And most people look at it as there's a slice of pie for me and there won't be enough to go around. I got to get, my slice of pie. But the entrepreneur thinks they're the ones adding ice cream on top of the pie. They think that more stuff can be added. And that's the way that people need to look at it is, don't think that there's only a limited amount of pie going around. Think of how you can make the pie bigger. And, you and I hang around guys like Joel Marion and Mike Geary and, you hang around Ed Milet and Andy Frisella and all these guys, and they are always thinking about making the pie bigger for other people, which is why they're so successful and do what they do, right? All right, you're probably in a negative scarcity mindset in these quarantine lockdown lifetimes. But listen, Bedros and I are going to flip the switch in your head and help you bring it up another level with the abundance mindset. B, were you always an abundant person?
I got to tell you, I wasn't always an abundant person, and for two specific reasons. One, I had no one to teach me what the abundance mindset was, and I believe most humans, factory installed, is the opposite. It's almost a scarcity mindset, a pessimistic mindset. It's a survival mechanism. And two, my mom and dad, and I love them to pieces for bringing me to this country and all, but just the Armenian culture is typically low tone, pessimistic, scarcity minded. And so I grew up the complete opposite, polar opposite of abundance. How about you?
Yeah, definitely the same as you because, grew up on the farm, money didn't grow on trees, hand-me-downs, all that sort of stuff, which, in a way to see my parents work really hard was really helpful, but in a way it can be detrimental. And, I was thinking about this the other day before we jump into the 7 steps for building an abundance mindset. I think that becoming an entrepreneur makes you more abundant minded. And I think you'll like this visual, but I think most people look at life like imagine everybody's in a little cafe and they're serving pie, okay? Pie, big round pie.
Right.
And most people look at it as there's a slice of pie for me and there won't be enough to go around. I got to get, my slice of pie. But the entrepreneur thinks they're the ones adding ice cream on top of the pie. They think that more stuff can be added. And that's the way that people need to look at it is, don't think that there's only a limited amount of pie going around. Think of how you can make the pie bigger. And, you and I hang around guys like Joel Marion and Mike Geary and, you hang around Ed Milet and Andy Frisella and all these guys, and they are always thinking about making the pie bigger for other people, which is why they're so successful and do what they do, right?
Which really goes back to the Zig Ziglar thing, right? We can put it in the new phrase that you said it, make the pie bigger for others. In other words, help others get what they want, and you'll get what you want. The more you can help the pie get bigger, the more you're going to get what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So again, there's 7 steps. These are my 7 steps, B. And if you got extra steps in here, this would be really cool to hear. But I've been talking about this a lot, and it's been really helpful, especially to young entrepreneurs, which is kind of like my passion project, helping 17, 18-year-old kids from all around the world. And the first one that I realized was it's not about adding something to your life. It's kind of like the way I approach discipline. Discipline is not about adding things to your life all the time. It's about subtracting things. And so one way in order to have an abundance mindset is to eliminate negative people and negative places from your life, or really eliminate yourself from being in negative places or around negative people. We don't want you to take Uncle Frank out in the back and put him in a grave or anything. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying what you want to do is eliminate the amount of time you spend around people that will suck you down to that level.
Yeah, to that point. So I think most people can understand avoiding negative people. I know immediately the secondary conversation our audience is having right now is, Craig, I could avoid negative people who are acquaintances, even business partners. I could part ways with a business partner, but dude, I think I married someone who's negative. Or what if my siblings are negative and toxic? What if they're doubters? What if my mom and dad are that way? I know for me, one thing that I've learned is you can eliminate and then you can edit, right? And so the people who are closest to you, maybe with the wife, the exception, like the parents or the siblings, you can edit the flavor of that relationship. Like, I don't have to go around telling my parents, who I love dearly, that I'm running another big annual conference and over 1,000 people are going to come. It's costing me over $1 million. I'm giving away a Land Rover like I do every year. Because every year that I've told them that, they go, how are you going to fill up the seats? Why are you giving away a Land Rover that costs 100 grand? How much are you going to make from this? Are you going to make any money from it? And so I've edited the flavor of our relationship where conversation is concerned, and I talk about their backyard and the vegetables they grow and, you know, the trips that they've been on. And I think people need to start focusing about eliminating, and they need to focus on editing. But do you have any insight on that?
Yeah. We should almost look at it as like a challenge. Like, oh, they're bringing up the election. They're bringing up this. They're bringing up the political party that I don't necessarily agree with. I'm going to both see how calm I can stay in that, because as an entrepreneur, you're going to be in situations, negotiations where you have to stay super calm, keep a poker face. And if you're the type of person who allows other people's ideas and comments and beliefs to get under your skin and make you reactive, well, you're actually going to be not a great entrepreneur. So you should almost lean into those conversations and see how much you can tolerate it. See how you, through your own language and your patterning and, you know, guiding the discussion, that you can take control of situations. And if people haven't read it, you know, getting Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, is a great way to control conversations and outcomes and emotions in very, you know, tense situations, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah, Chris Voss's book is a great one. Wyatt Woodsmall has a great book on NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming. And have you ever done this? I've actually done this with our masterminds. I've done this with just places you and I have been to where we're guest speakers, and the conversation turns to something negative. Like the group around us will turn, and I'll physically move the group. Like, hey guys, let's get out of the way from of these waiters, and I'll move the people over, because I know that as soon as I can create a pattern interrupt, I can change the subject. Or I might immediately go, hey, that's a really nice watch you're wearing. Is that a whatever? And I'll try and control the conversation. And there's really two benefits to it. One, sometimes you'll find yourself in a negative place. Like this happens every Thanksgiving. Doesn't matter if you're Canadian, American, or European. There's some version of Thanksgiving happening anywhere across the world. You're going to sit at that dinner table with family members or extended family who have, like you said, a different political view, a different view on entrepreneurship, on what you are or what you're not capable of. And at the end of the day, can you control the conversation? Can you control the flavor, the mood, the energy, the dialogue? And if you can, that is some of the best entrepreneurial training, because in the conference room, when you're negotiating on selling your business or buying up equity in someone else's business, you do have to keep that poker face, like you said. And so much of that is emotional discipline, controlling yourself versus having that outburst of, no, Trump is my man, or fucking Biden, or whoever the dickwad is that's running for president these days.
Well, okay. So that's good. That's exactly what people need to understand, is control the negativity. Now, flip it over. And I think that you've had a great mentor. I've had multiple great mentors in life. You know, you might tell some of your Disney stories or being mentored by Jim Franco, but the second principle is to apprentice under the right person. And I'll just quickly share that when I was 12 years old, I got a job at a greenhouse up in Canada, making $2.85 Canadian per hour, you know, digging ditches, all this stuff. But I realize now, you know, 30 years later, that I was actually being paid to apprentice under one of the best entrepreneurs in my town. And I got so lucky. And so when I get these messages from kids all over the world and young people, men and women, all that, they say, well, I want to become a millionaire. What should I do? And most of the time I say, go get a job working for the best entrepreneur in your town, because right now you don't have the skills to go and start a business. Like, you got nothing and you're going to be very frustrated. So go and get paid to get mentored. So tell us about some of the, you know, the experiences you had when you worked at Disney, because I know that you learned a lot there. And then also just from having Jim Franco as an amazing personal training client who changed your life.
Dude, you know what's funny too? It's that reframe that you said. How often will we, especially as a younger population, like if you're young, if you're in your teens or early 20s listening to this and you're like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but you really don't have anything to sink your teeth into. You don't have a product, you don't have a service, you don't have a sales skills, you don't have the systems, the leadership skills. And we're like, well, I'm working for a boss who's a tyrant. It's like, if that guy is profitable, if that business is making money, you're getting paid to get mentored. Like, what if you can, and sometimes some of the best lessons are, my dad told me this, I said, Dad, you're a really good husband for like coming from the communist world. Like, you know, having grown up in the US, I'm like, you're a really good husband. Like, you're very attentive. You're so not a communist husband to Mom. And he goes, oh, I just watched what my older brother did with his wife, and I did the opposite because my dad's older brother was just a tyrant with his wife, and just did not give her a good life. And so my dad saw that. And so sometimes if you're working for someone, you realize I actually am in an opportunity to learn from their mistakes, or possibly I may not like what I'm doing, but this person's profitable, they're paying me, and I might be able to learn from their lessons in business. But one example to that, when I worked at Disneyland, and I knew this early on that mentors were special because Jim Franco, before I worked at Disneyland, I was a personal trainer, and people who've read my book, Man Up, they know that Jim Franco was one of my personal training clients who mentored me. So I knew the value of mentors early on. So when I got into Disneyland, as much as I hated being a busboy and a fry cook, it wasn't the most glamorous job that you could have at Disneyland. At Carnation Cafe restaurant, I had two.
What was the most glamorous job? Was it being Tinkerbell or was it being Mickey Mouse? What was the actual? Because I'm very curious now that you say that.
I will tell you actually, it was to be one of the face characters. So there's characters who wear the whole suit like the Mickey Mouse head, but if you're a face character like you're Tarzan or you're Aladdin, or if you're a guy or you're any one of the princesses, dude, bro, like that's it. You have like hit the top. Like, it's all down from there. Because then you might even get recognized on the street, right? Like Disneyland has 85,000 people that attend every day. So when it was open, now it's empty. But shit. So to that point, I'm working at Carnation Cafe, and I had already realized the value of mentors. I'm probably 21, 22 years old, and I had Kathy as one supervisor, and I had this guy named Doug who had this southern accent and big bellowing voice. And Kathy was the person where I talked about in my book where she one day I'm working on the fryer cooking up all these burgers and steaks, and it's the Main Street Electrical Parade's gonna go by, and it's just thousands of people waiting to get seated. And at the time I had sideburns. You can't have facial hair at Disneyland at the time, but I had sideburns that went right below my earlobe, and I'm cooking and I feel this pen alongside my face, and I'm like, pull away, and I'm like, what's going on? She goes, she was measuring the length of my sideburns, that they're below my earlobe, made me go across the street to the employee locker room or the cast member locker room and dock my pay and shave my sideburns up. And I knew while I screwed up, I came to work with slightly longer than needed sideburns, that this was going to cause a lot of harm to the restaurant, to the kitchen that was going to get backed up, etc., and that it was bad leadership on her part. Doug, on the other hand, would be that guy who would come in, and when we were busy, he'd flip his tie over his shoulder, and with his big bellowing voice, what could I do to help, boys? And he'd just jump on the grill, he'd jump on the board, and the board is where you put the food up once it's ready and tear the ticket. And I learned so much. Neither one of them were teaching, but as Ed Milet says, there's so much to be learned by so much of the best lessons are caught and not taught. And I was like, man, if I ever become an entrepreneur, if I ever own my own business, I'm going to be like Doug and not Kathy. And today, I'm still that guy. I will go and like work in a department and write copy for them. I will figure out what to do to make a sale for the sales department. There's no job that I won't do, and my team is super loyal to me because of that.
I love it. And so next time I go to Disney, I'm going to see Princess Bedros and with the sideburns. That's all I picture, you know, like.
Well, at the Disneyland,
the sideburns now.
If Disney ever opens up a Disney Armenia, you will definitely see a princess with sideburns.
There you go. All right, man. So something that we've been doing is tip number 3 here for building an abundance mindset is masterminding with people. And I'll tell you what, one of the things for helping my abundance mindset is spending time with you and Matt Smith and Joel Marion and this guy named Porter Stansbury who's from Matt's financial world and Ed Milet and Lewis Howes and all of these people. You're like, you are so giving, so generous. You're helping every single person that comes up to you, signing their books and giving them a word of advice. Man, not that I didn't do that stuff, but any time that I hesitated to do it, I was like, I've seen so many great people give their time. So let's talk about the power of masterminding and being in the room with the right people. The other day, I made a post that you saw about the classic Jim Rohn quote of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So what can people do now? Because they're probably thinking, yeah, well, you can't go to a mastermind event. You can't go to any events. What can people do now in the virtual world to connect with the right people?
Well, even now, there's like we had a virtual workshop that we ran 2 weeks ago, and we had all those great people on there, those entrepreneurs who we were able to help. And look, proximity is power. Make no mistake about it. Like if you can be in the same room, shake hands, break bread, pick someone's mind. If I could sit across from Craig at lunchtime and pick your mind, I'm going to get a lot of value, no doubt about it. But in the absence of that, now during this COVID period, maybe, just maybe, I can actually learn by reading your book. Like that's mentorship. Maybe I can watch more of your YouTube videos. Maybe I can start doing some kind of virtual coaching with you or some kind of workshop that you're running. Like when I did my 7-day income ignition about a month ago, I said 2 months ago now, we had 50 people who paid $1,000 a piece, and 7 days straight for 2 hours a day, I coached them live via Zoom. And every single one of them I still check up on, and they're just thriving. And they didn't know how to pivot. They had never gone through an economic crisis like we're going through right now because they're new entrepreneurs, but profitable entrepreneurs, but they were afraid the business was going to fall out. Now, if they said, well, there's no masterminds happening because of quarantines, I got to figure it out on my own, half of those 50 would have probably been out of business right now. And it's one of those things where the opportunities are there. Unfortunately, I think people feel that now's not the right time. And you have a really good way of putting that. Like,
people are crying themselves to sleep because you're holding back or your ego's getting in the way. You're not asking for help. People are literally crying themselves to sleep because they can't get your workout program. They can't get your credit repair program. They can't get your social media program, whatever it is. And you got to get over yourself pretty quick, because I remember I said that to Shauna Kaminsky in 2010, and she still says that was like one of the most important things I ever said to her to this day.
Yeah. Dude, I use that wisdom that you shared with so many people. If now's not the good time, then when? Like, perfect will never be. We've got to take that imperfect action. And if we don't take imperfect action, you're simply going to find excuse after excuse after excuse. And so I'll put myself around anybody under any circumstance. And quite honestly, even in an environment where there's these lockdowns and quarantines, you could find someone in your community who's doing better than you or is even like-minded as you and say, hey, you got COVID? No, I don't. I don't either. Great. You want to go hang out, have lunch, grab a wine, and you just might make that connection, and that connection might go somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I like what you said about, read my book or listen to our YouTube videos or whatever. So if somebody's new to the Empire podcast, what they should do is go on to listen episode 100, then listen to episode 82, which I think is some really fast action. Then start from the start, get to know us. And it's kind of like Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich. He didn't call it a virtual mastermind, obviously, but he had a mastermind in his head of great famous people from history. And you can do that thinking, what would Bedros do in this situation? Or what would Sharon Srivatsa do in this situation? Or Jason Capital? And that's a good thing, because then it'll get you abundantly thinking. Which leads me into point number 4 is read biographies. And I'll tell you, the two of the ones that have really helped me the most in the last couple of years, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, seeing what he went through and the community that he grew in the running world, which then led into Nike being so big and successful. And then obviously Elon Musk, and his biography was so good that I would rush home from the office to read it for like 2 hours a night when I was going through it. But we can read those, and we can go back and read Rockefeller's biography or Henry Ford's biography. Are there any other biographies that really impacted you over the years?
Well, I think those that you laid out there, but Carnegie is another one, right? Dale Carnegie is yet another one.
And Think and Grow Rich, simply going back and reading Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich might be, the kind of the best summary of a lot of those old biographies and principles as well.
So many great books have been written about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, his business partner. I mean, like, wouldn't you want to be able to make, if your goal is to be in the trading business or stocks, if like that's where you want to thrive, then wouldn't you go and read every book about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, even if it was written by other people and not their official biography? And here's why. And here's what I get most out of it. Actually, you know this guy, Cable McElderly, right? One of your fellow Canadians. Years ago, before he became a business partner, he was a coaching client in the 7-figure Mastermind. And he's sitting there. This was his 3rd year in the Mastermind. His business just kept scaling by like 200 or 300% year after year. And one day, after a Mastermind, he comes up to me. He goes, dude, so I was playing this game the entire time when you were doing hot seats. I'm like, what game were you playing? He goes, well, every time someone in the hot seat would ask a question of you, I would answer it in my head. And like 95% of the time, that's the answer that you gave that person. I've been around you so much, so long, I've learned to think like you. Now, interestingly enough, right behind the wall behind me is our corporate office. And our VP for Fit Body Bootcamp, Bryce, is back there. And, he's a great MC. And so he's always the MC of all of our live events, like the Empire Summit that we did, etc. And one of the greatest compliments he gives me from stage is, he goes, while B has helped me become a millionaire, the best thing he's done for me is teach me how to think. And if you read enough of those books from Elon Musk, from Craig Ballantyne, from Dan Kennedy, like everyone should read, if you're in business, you should read all of Dan Kennedy's books, the No BS lines, and then you should read Unfinished Business, right? His biography, really, because if you can start learning to think, not use Craig Ballantyne's morning routine, but start thinking like Craig Ballantyne. Start thinking like Henry Ford. Start thinking like Elon Musk or Dan Kennedy or Warren Buffett. Holy smokes, at any given time, you could literally summon that person up in your head and go, I may not have Craig here right now, but I do this all the time. But how would Craig work through this problem? What would Craig tell me? And 99% of the time, I know the answer because I've been around you for a decade plus now. And that's the value of these biographies, You can bring a human to life and have them coach you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The next one is another thinking exercise. So the 5th principle or step in building an abundance mindset is something that you don't do, but I know you have a version of it. So there's meditations. There's tons of abundance mindset meditations on YouTube. Our friend Ian Stanley has a money abundance mindset meditation that you can get. You'll have to find his books and courses. If you go to persuasionhitman.com, you'll find his book, and then you'll be able to find his money meditation. So there's all these things that can really control your attitude around money. And actually, right now, I'm reading another book on, these limiting money beliefs. Right now, I forget what it is, unfortunately, but there's a lot of material out there that helps you think properly about money, even if you came from a situation where you didn't. Now, you have your gratitude exercise. So tell us about the power of abundance growth through gratitude.
Yeah, and it's no different than meditation. And, look, I've studied meditation enough to know that it's not for me. However, when I go out surfing, for example, and I'm sitting on that vast Pacific Ocean on my surfboard waiting for a set of waves to start, dude, I could sit there and realize, oh, okay, this is literally active meditation. Because I'm sitting here in calm and peace, waiting for a set of waves to start, and I get to reflect on the great things in my life. And so when I'm not surfing once a week, the other 6 days a week, I'm at home, I send out 3 gratitude text messages to 3 people that I love, adore, appreciate, am grateful for in my life. It takes me all of 10 or 15 minutes, but it puts me in an active state of gratitude because I'm forced to think about Craig Ballantyne and what has he done in my life and what am I appreciative for. And
what has he done in your life?
What hasn't he done?
For me lately, Mr.
You see all these gray hairs right here? They have your name written all over it.
There you go.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? And so when you actively, and honestly, it is the most selfish thing I do, Craigie, when I send out these 3 gratitude text messages, because look, as an entrepreneur, you plan your day. You go, here's my list of things I'm going to do today, whether it's on a paper or notepad or in your iPhone. And then all that list of plan is just everything that can go wrong. And as your day goes wrong in some fashion, one of those 3 people that you texted early on in the morning and showed gratitude to sends you a text message and goes, you know what, Bedros, I appreciate that text message you sent. I needed that. It was so timely. And I feel like I'm such a superhero for doing that, right? And so, and I feel good in that moment when things are going shitty for me. And so whether it's meditation, like active meditation, sitting there and going into a trance, or surfing and waiting for the waves to start, or just actively sending gratitude text messages, there is a place for meditation that creates a sense of abundance and gratitude.
Yep. And so I remember the name of the book now. It's called Wired for Wealth, Change the Money Mindsets That Keep You Trapped. And then there's another book, the Dan Kennedy book. People were going to start with a Dan Kennedy book, on this topic. Get the No BS Wealth Attraction book that he has. It's really, really fantastic. No BS Wealth Attraction. So then moving on to point number 6 is very similar to the gratitude. It's generosity. And I think Yannick once gave me this phrase. It sounds a little weird, but it's the hole you give through is the hole you receive through. And man, I remember the last time you were doing a podcast, you talked about how much you had given to Toys for Tots. It's mind-blowing that through you and Fit Body Bootcamp, you'd given over $1 million to Toys for Tots, which is a charity we've been involved with for a long time. To the people who say, yeah, but you've got money or whatever, what do you say to somebody who knows they should give and who will benefit from giving, but still has that scarcity mindset, that penny pinching mindset that I once had when we first started doing those Toys for Tots events?
Yeah. Well, it's exactly that. I'd never heard that phrase from Yannick, but that so makes sense. Listen, if you're not in a place where you can give 7 figures to Toys for Tots right now, don't. But is there a percentage of your profits that you could give? Is it just 1% of your profits? Give and give without expectation and watch what happens back. I'm not a woo-woo person, man. You know me well enough to know, like, I don't go around hugging trees and lighting incense and all that shit. Like, I just put my head down and plow. But I do know this. The universe just has a way of taking care of people who take care of people. And I think that...
good and bad.
Yeah.
They'll take care of you if you're taking care of people the wrong way.
Ain't that the truth? I'm glad you brought that up, both good and bad. And I really believe that if we actively take care of the people who can't necessarily take care of themselves, whether it's elderly, whether it's the homeless, whether it's the addicted, whether it's the youth, the children, those are all
people with PTSD or
right,
like wounded warriors.
Exactly.
That sort of stuff. Exactly.
The good things will happen. So hey, don't give $1 million, but can you give $5? I mean,
sure.
Fuck, you're going to go through drive-through and drink a Starbucks. Just don't. Drink Folgers instead at home, and there's 18 cents for your Folgers. Now give the rest to whatever cause that you believe in. And that creates a habit, by the way, because, I'm not going to take the computer up, but right back there behind the laptop, there's like all these awards from Compassion International, Toys for Tots, and Shriners Children's Hospital. And each time they send me an award, I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'm going to send more money towards them, because we are reward driven. And I see that, and it reminds me of how many good things have happened in my life since I've been donating, and I donate more. So it is a cyclical event to be generous.
Yeah, and so when we started the Toys for Tots with my friend Matt Smith in Denver, he started it and I got involved in it. And then, we would go to, the way that it works is you buy all these toys, you give them to the Marine Corps distributes them in America. And so, I would walk up and I'd be like, oh, I want to buy this many toys. And I think the first year I spent like 15 grand, and, I had 15 grand, but I didn't want to spend it. And then I realized, the next week after I, had spent it, it filled itself back up. It filled itself back up, and it's really not that big of a deal. Now, at that time, I couldn't give 150 grand, but that wouldn't fill itself up quickly. But like you said, don't wait until you can give a 10 grand, 5 grand, or even a grand. Give $5 today. And I will say this, I see a lot of entrepreneurs that come to my workshops and they say, one day I want to start a foundation for, abused youth or whatever it is. I say, why? Well, what have you given this year to any existing? Well, nothing. Well, you just get started. Everyone wins when you just get started. And so that's like kind of a little mentorship for you, which brings me to point number 7. If you want to build an abundance.
Before you go to point 7, I'm going to share a little business secret with everyone that you and I know that everyone else needs to hear. I know we're talking about obviously developing an abundance mindset, But with that abundance mindset, let's throw a few more million in their bank account. Guys and gals, listen up, here we go. And it is this, as Craig said, the first year that he did the Toys for Tots thing, and he called me up, he's like, hey B, we're doing this thing in Denver, these kids are gonna wake up and not have a Christmas toy on Christmas morning. And I flew out there with the family, and a few of our friends came out there, and we went to Walmart.
You remember how young Chloe was at that first one?
Oh my gosh, she was a puppy, dude.
Yeah. Holy cow.
And we went to Walmart, and like you said, you spent your 15 grand, I spent my 15 grand or whatever it was. And sure, man, you didn't want to give that 15 grand. You had, in your mind, hey, I got better ways I could spend this, or I got better things to do with this. But here's the reality. When you said it, you said it. I spent it, and then it filled itself back up. People need to realize that instead of trying to say, I'm not going to spend this money, work on raising the glass ceiling in your bank account. In other words, everyone's got this limiter. It's like a thermostat. Like I feel safe and comfortable when my bank account has, and then fill in the blank, 20,000, 100 million, $1 million. And so instead of saying, I'm not going to spend X amount of dollars because it'll then put me out of my $20,000 bank account range, we know that when you spend it, because you need to feel safe and comfortable again, you'll find a way to fill it back up. Instead, raise the glass ceiling so it's no longer 20 grand. You actually want to make 90 grand, 100 grand, $200 million, whatever that dollar amount is. But so many people are focused on what they don't want to spend instead of how much they want to make. And if you just kind of shift the target and raise the ceiling, you find that money comes a lot easier.
Absolutely, my man. Absolutely. And you're absolutely right about being around the right people. And so, we've often heard the phrase that, if if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. It also goes with health too. If you're the strongest person in your gym, you're not going to get stronger, but it goes with wealth too. If you're not hanging around people who are wealthier than you, and I'm always saying, people who got wealthy morally, ethically, not through, crime or not because they got money, inherited, but people who made their money and who are good stewards of their money, and you see how they can use their money. That's really important, which brings us to point number 7, which is mentorship. And again, you had a good mentor. I think we both almost had rich dad, poor dad experiences. Mm-hmm. I had, my father, and then I had my who was the poor dad, and then my boss at the greenhouse, who was a richer dad, and then this guy Mark Ford, who I bought my business from. He was my richest dad, and you're just my rich older brother. But you had Jim Franco, who was your rich dad. And what was the power of having a mentor like that who showed you proper investment strategies, but also showed you the power of recurring revenue, which was probably one of the biggest game changers there too?
That has forever, like the very first lesson he told me when I opened up my first gym was, because remember, in the personal training industry, the industry that I come from, personal training at my time in the late 90s, early 2000s was sold with, you sell 5 sessions at a time, 10 sessions at a time. And then once Craig is done with those 10 sessions, I go, hey, Craig, do you want to buy some more sessions with me? And now it's a yes or a no. And if I lose you as a client, shit, there goes some of my income. I got to replace you as a client. And he said, why are you selling 5, 10, 15 sessions at a time? I said, that's how we do it in this industry, Jim. And I said it almost in a condescending way. And he goes, have you thought of charging people on a monthly basis and selling them a 12-month program, a 6-month program, 18-month program if they have a lot of weight to lose? I said, that's not how we do it. He goes, but that's how I would pay. I've got the money. And because I never, at the time, I didn't have the money to pay $600 to $800 a month on a recurring basis, like Netflix wasn't around back then or whatever. So it's not like there was all these subscription plans, but even if there were, who the hell was going to pay, in my mind, $600 to $800 a month? Well, Jim Franco was, because the man owned a massive software company and showed up every day with a different car and left work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because he could, and worked, his session with me was at 2:30. And he literally showed me how to raise the thermostat on my thinking. Like, dude, I didn't understand why he had multiple cars. And I said, Jim, yesterday you showed up at the Cadillac Escalade. I was looking out the gym window here, the health club window, and I see that you're showing up with a Mercedes-Benz 500 class. Did you sell that car? He goes, no, I've gotten many cars. I've got classic cars. And it blew my mind that a human could have more than one car because I didn't have one, and therefore, right? And so he raised that thermostat, and expectations. He raised that thermostat, and I can change the way businesses run. Just because my industry doesn't charge on a recurring basis doesn't mean that I couldn't. And so what I did, and he said, give your business legs. And I go, huh? What is legs? He goes, make sure your clients are paying you on a monthly basis so that if you ever go to sell your gyms, the buyer's going to buy the receivables, the monthly subscriptions. And that's exactly what happened 4 years later. Craig, when I sold my 5 gyms, the organization that bought it from me didn't buy Premier Results, the brand. They literally, the next day, they changed the name. They just bought my 1,200 personal training clients that I had, who were all paying between $500 and $800 a month. And
did you know that I never knew the name of your gyms until right now? Oh, yeah. I had no idea it was called Premier Results.
Premier Results, yeah.
That's a great name.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, Alan Cosgrove always, he has Results Fitness. And he always thinks, people that come up with, especially if you have a last name, is your last name is Burns, and it's Burns, the Fat Fitness. And what are you talking about? It's but he always said, just name it something really straightforward, really blunt.
Yeah, that was it. But yeah, Results Fitness with Alan, I think that's an even better name. But yeah, Premier Results is what we had. But that's exactly why people bought it. The company that bought it and changed the name, and then kind of just inherited all my clients and staff, believe it or not. Yeah.
Yeah. So mentorship is the 7th one. And again, what are you going to do if you can't leave the home where you're in lockdown? You get mentorship virtually through the Empire podcast. Now, I actually didn't have this one written down, Bedros, but you kind of mentioned something there that reminded me of something that I told my clients a long time ago. And I wonder what you think of this. To build your abundance mindset, do you think there's value in having millionaire experiences? So at my last Perfect Life retreat, I told all my coaching clients, hey, you're coming out to San Diego, you're going to have a great time, but have a millionaire experience where you're here. Take somebody out to a steak dinner and, spend a couple $100, or in our case, we would spend $2,500. Or, and a couple other my clients, they rented a Mercedes and drove up Pacific Coast Highway. They never would have thought about that. And they realized what it was like to live the good life. And I think that really changed them. So what do you think of having millionaire experiences sprinkled in there smartly, wisely as well?
Yeah, to me, that's a mandatory thing. And it serves as 2 purposes. One, it raises the thermostat or the glass ceiling on what you're capable of doing and gives you a little taste, and then you tend to want more. I mean, this may be a very bad analogy, but the crack dealer, the cocaine dealer who gives you that first little bump of that drug does it so that you'll want to repeat that experience, right? And so the brain acts and operates the same fashion when you have a millionaire experience. You fly first class once, even when it's uncomfortable for you to pay for that, fly it once. You will enjoy first class, especially if it's the advanced first class where you can lay out in the bed and you have your own fucking pod and all that shit. Now I can't fly anything else but that. Regular first class doesn't even cut it for me because I just require the pods. And your subconscious mind will figure out how to make more money and how to come up with more solutions to problems to make more money so that you can have that experience. And so I'll give you an example of a young man that I mentor in my private coaching program, Tony Steffen. He's 29 years old. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this. He's going to do $2 million this year in revenue. And when he signed up for my coaching program 3 years ago, he was a registered dietitian that had school debt, who was selling gym membership at a Lifetime Fitness in Michigan and barely making 40 grand a year. And he told his dad he's going to max out his credit cards and sign up for a mentorship program with me. Dad thought he was crazy. Mom's not alive to slap him straight. And so he did this thing with me. And just year after year, in a 3.5-year period now, he's going to have a $2 million a year this year, during the COVID year. Best year ever for him. And I've asked him right before so 2 years ago when he had his $700,000 a year, I said, give yourself a millionaire experience. He came and lived in Newport Beach on the boardwalk there and rented an Airbnb on the water for 15 grand for that month. And he's like, holy crap, this is expensive. Now he and his wife are doing it a second time this summer. And now they're talking about moving to California from Michigan. None of that would have happened in his thermostat. Then he started doing the math. What's it going to take to live in California? Oh shit, a couple $1 million a year will not give me that lifestyle in California on the beach. So now we're talking about how he can scale his company and create another company to go from 2 million to 20 million so that he could own a home like that. And had he not given himself that $1 millionaire experience, or the first class experience, or the fact that he bought himself a nice Cartier watch, that I have one and he got one too, these were little, every time we'd hit a milestone in his business, go give yourself a millionaire experience. And those things have raised that thermostat. It's so important as a reward and as a taste of something else that's out there and you can get, because there's always that next level.
I love it. I love it. There always is that next level, which I was just thinking when you're talking about the first class flights, is the next level beyond that is obviously private jets. But every time we've been in a private jet, you and I, they're like tiny and cramped. And
yeah, I got to tell you, unless it's a 727, which I can't say the royalty, but I've been on a 727 and this royalty let me on it and fly. It was awesome. Where you could just walk straight without having I'm 6 feet tall. It doesn't matter if it's a Gulfstream or whatever. You're still crunched in because it's not the width of a regular 747. Now, 727, I'm down for that shit. I would fuck around with that shit. Yeah.
All right, I love it. Now, everybody listening, you are probably pumped up, jacked up to go out there, grow your business, grow your mindset. You're abundant now. Don't let the scarcity bring you down. All right. If you like that Empire show, you know what to do. Share with your friends who need that abundance mindset.